Just fucking, hey, what? Dude.
Get.
Magic the Gathering.
Guess who's back to feeling 100%, everybody.
Back again. Wait, we didn't.
Not 100%, but.
Should probably leave. Wearing a mask. We didn't have an episode last week where you were here in the same place as me. Well, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
In particular.
You were here. For our audio listeners, I'm tapping my left chest muscle.
Well, technically, we were on Twitter, which is a place that I don't want to be.
Yeah, it can be a scary place.
You already do want to be?
I don't mind it.
No, wait. You said you know where I do want to be.
Oh, in Galarian.
No, not. Hey, I guess it's not a.
Sorry, was that too fast?
It's too fast.
Segue?
It's too fast. We played a lot of Magic the Gathering, dude.
We haven't played a lot of Magic.
He got healthier, and we played a shitload of cardboard crack, as it is known, and he won both times.
So thankfully, neither of us partake in the cardboard crack. Our good friend Kenneth played Salty.
He buys everything for us.
He buys it all. Granted, he gets to keep pretty much all the cards, so fine by him.
No, he gets to keep the thing for me about that is that we're going to more than likely a pre-release, and with my history with gacha games, and now having a job and money,
are you going to be buying it?
It will be a big waste of money because I will not use it.
Yeah.
Because I don't play Standard.
You did re-download Arena.
I never played it though.
But you downloaded it.
But I never played it. So if you, it's like premeditation. I don't know. But we've also been thinking about, Galarian? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Galarian.
Oh yeah. Sounds like something out of a thing that I'm going to reference that I can't right now. But we've been for the past several weeks or a long time. Yeah. Even more than that, we've probably mentioned it at some point because I have wanted to go into other systems for a long time.
Yes.
Who am I though? Who is he? We're starting this right away. He's Ryan.
He's Braxton.
This is the dungeon crawl. Yes. Boy, we're tired. A lot of stuff. I had a friend over. We've been hanging out. It's exhausting. It's been a long weekend, but don't let that fool you. I'm still very excited about Pathfinder because until 4 days ago, I hadn't read, looked at, or pretty much heard a single thing at all.
Really?
Kenneth will mention a thing or two.
Sure, and you're like,
there's a witch class or it does this. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fun.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. So whenever we finally said, all right, let's get into Pathfinder and do an episode on it, I did not know it was Player's Handbook or Core Rulebook was 600 pages.
642.
642.
Everyone keeping score at home.
And almost all of it is stuff that you should read through if you're wanting to learn about the game and being a DM. Players, there's some stuff you can peek at.
To be fair, it does combine some DM stuff.
It does.
Which is also, GM stuff. They call it Game Master here. Which also is weird because there is a Game Master's Guide as well. So there's a whole separate book that also has that stuff and more in it, as well as an advanced player's guide.
Advanced player's guide is not even... That's such a weird wording on it. It's literally just a supplement.
Yeah, it adds...
Why is it advanced, though? It's just other features.
Well, it's I don't know.
It's just other features. It's literally just here's some extra thing to play as.
Maybe it's making it more confusing for people.
Well, I guess that's the big point right now. So what is 5e and why would you even consider moving from it, looking outside of things, other than just to experience the broader world of tabletop RPGs that there is?
Which one should do.
Because
there's a possibility that the system you're playing might not even be the best fit for you.
Yeah, it just depends. Just testing stuff out. There was a tweet that I did not get before that said people who only play 5th edition and never test it out, it was worded really antagonistically, saying that they basically are worse off as a DM. We don't believe that. At least I don't believe that. I don't know if you do.
I would say not playing a different one. I wouldn't agree with that, but I would say not looking at other systems.
There's wealth and experience.
You might as well look at them. It's like the old saying, if you're religious, it's okay to look around at the other ones, at least get an idea and say, okay, you're either going to be more confident in the one you're playing, the one you're following, or the one you're playing, or you're going to find one that fits you better.
Yeah. That's my journey with Warlocks.
You can take stuff from other systems and bring them into your own game. Which
is kind of what Pathfinder did, but for 5e in particular, I've learned more so that what they're doing right now is presenting... setting is the incorrect word, but they're giving you a platform for role-playing, and there is so little in the way of actual content. They give you the framework, JD agrees.
He does.
But they don't really give you content about it. It's not as much of a game as it is facilitated role-playing, with some mechanics here and there, but ultimately, up to you. Pathfinder's much the same, but this is a game. There are stats for almost everything. They gamify sections of it. Like there's exploration has rules to it. Combat encounters have rules to it.
To be fair, D&D does have rules to exploration and stuff, but no one ever uses them.
But in like the game that we play in our home game, at least, and even in mine, it's amorphous. You just go around and you do stuff, but there's clear sets and phases to Pathfinder. So if you're looking for something more structured and you're like me where I want to restrict my mind, so I have to go into a game, into a system and play, this could be for you. That's my early quip on why you might want to swap to Pathfinder or look at something else over 5e in general.
Okay.
For you?
For me, I would say why you would want to leave 5e for Pathfinder would be similar to what Braxton was saying, that it's more of an experience, more of a game going on. There's more number crunching.
Oh my
God.
God.
More options for you to pick from that are actually, I hesitate to say meaningful, because there are some meaningful choices in D&D, but more heavy choices, I guess. And I don't know, it's a tough thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend one over the other. I'd say at least look at both, get an idea, try and figure out what would be best for you and your group. Because 5e still has a place. It still has a lot of great stuff in there, but Pathfinder also has a lot of great stuff. I mean, so before we looked at second edition, I've looked a lot at first edition, not necessarily on the way it plays, but on the adventures and the way that
use the tools.
The tools. A lot of the ways that Pathfinder and Paizo, I don't know, Paizo.
That's probably what it is.
Paizo. The way they give out information in their books is very well done, and I bring that stuff in all the time to my 5th edition game.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so, because a lot of the 5th edition stuff that I've experienced or read about or tried to run myself or thought about running, whatever situation it was, I realized that a lot of it is that it's up to you situation. Say you're doing a parlay with some, big bad evil guy and whatnot. A lot of that in 5th edition is up to, say, Ryan as a DM. So me as a player, I want to convince the bad guy to do something in 5th edition. I talk to him. Maybe there's a persuasion check in there at some point if Ryan feels like it's worth that. But for the most part, you can kind of go with the flow and say, you know what? I, as Ryan, the DM, listening to Braxton's character speak to my big bad evil guy, think that was convincing enough. According to my guy's morals, his standing and whatnot, all these things are just going on in Ryan's head. And he's like, okay, sure. Maybe he came up with some tangents in his head before, like if player says this, I'll do that. But it's whatever. It can kind of go with the flow. Pathfinder, every single thing I mentioned just now, navigating that conversation, has a dice roll for it, has a mechanic. The characters have, the NPCs have friendship level, basically, or their disposition against you, and that is mechanized. It goes up and down depending on your rolls, what you do. Everything is facilitated through the game settings and rules and mechanics. It's crazy.
I will say, though, with that being said, D&D does have some things in some of their books that are similar to that, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 DMs, 9 out of 10 DMs will recommend to avoid all that stuff. I'd say even with Pathfinder, it might not even be. If I were ever run a Pathfinder game, it'd be similar to your role-playing stuff, and unless my players are really gung-ho and want to roll every little detail, then of course we can.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, I think it can get, I guess going into the reason why people don't want to play Pathfinder can be overwhelming.
Well,
can get scary and intimidating to remember, okay, I have to think all these different things, especially as a DM. They go like, okay, I have to remember all these different mechanics. I have to remember the pluses and the minuses and the factions going up and down.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the why not. Pretend you're my DM or GM, sorry, in this case. Yeah. Pretend you're my GM.
Game master.
And I am like, hey, I want to play some sort of tabletop RPG with you. And you're like, okay, maybe 5th edition or Pathfinder. I'm still deciding right now. You end up leaning towards Pathfinder. What do you need me to do as a player in order to get to our first session? What kind of prep do I have to do?
I'd probably.
What do you want me to do?
I'd want you to read through at least the player section up until I'd say probably chapter. I mean, I guess depending on what your class is, you decide upon. At least through chapter 5.
At least through chapter 5.
Maybe through chapter 3 4 at the most.
Chapter 4 is 232 pages, which is probably almost all of.
Yes.
Player's Handbook is like.
Some of that stuff is you can skim. If you
can.
If you look at an ancestry or a class, like not interested, scroll past.
Yes. So contrast. if I know what I like to play is warlock style stuff, I'm going to look for the class that kind of befits that most. Maybe look at the aberrant sorcerer.
Also have to read chapter 9, playing the game.
Playing the game. So there's a lot of content to read through there, and you can skim when you get to classes and options, things that your character does. But learning the rules of the game is genuine, page by page.
Yeah.
In D&D, there's like the shove action, the dash action, and things like that.
Well, it's like inviting your friends over for a tabletop night, and you just pick up, I don't know, Pandemic or some other tabletop game that you can pick up at your local game store, and having to sit down with the rule sheet and say, okay, so on my turn, I can do these actions. Okay, you flip it over, see, okay, this is how we get to the next phase of the game, and just figuring it all out. That's what this is.
I feel like you could do that for D&D in one night.
Yes, D&D is very much a...
Now, maybe that's just because we're used to it.
Well, I sincerely think if I know D&D, I can get 4 people who don't know how to play at all. We can play a game that night.
Can't do it in this.
Pathfinder, no, you'd have to
I think I need a week or two.
You'd have to at least need a full session 0 where you explain the rules, maybe do a quick run through of a combat encounter together. Say, all right, so this is what happens. You know, there's sections in the book that even says examples of how it plays. Maybe do that in person.
Yeah.
And lay it out for them.
As the DM as well, for me, would need my players' sheets. In 5th edition, when I'm making stuff, if I want to get really involved with combat and kind of play to their advantages and disadvantages and make it intricate that way, I can. If I want to do something wholesale, I can do that in 5th edition, whereas, I mean, I don't need to know everything my players do, because if they have a spell that I don't know, it takes 2 seconds to look it up. Just forget about online stuff. Even if I just had player's handbook, it's fine. But in Pathfinder 2nd edition, there are so many feats that have unique things they do that I would need to have those ready for me to look at, or a copy of my player's sheet right away, because they're gonna be like, oh, what does this do again? How does that work? It's not straightforward at all. I would want some time to have that, look at it, read it, and understand it. That makes me wonder what a pre-created one-shot, like beginners thing, like Minds of Phandelver. What would the adjacent thing be like that in Pathfinder?
Unfortunately, they're not able to get a look at the beginners box for this game, similar to the Minds of Phandelver.
Yeah.
I'm curious how that would look.
It would have to be like 5th level or lower. Anything higher than that, it's just like,
yeah,
and no leveling up.
So Brax and I did talk about this before we sat down, but we were saying how I had it. This is funny though.
It's like a plague.
I had it, forgot it, remembered it, and then forgot it again.
It's like a plague. I don't know. So basically, this is just so much content to chew down on that if you have your group of friends and you've been playing 5th edition for a while, or you've been playing complicated board games, or you guys are playing complicated video games, you have to coordinate a lot and learn shit. You got it. Hold on. Pathfinder is something for you to really sink your teeth into. Go.
Yeah. We were talking this before we sat down, how when we first, at least in my experience, when I first sat down, watched Critical Role, whatever, and it's like, you know what? I want to play
they did
D&D.
Pathfinder.
Yes, they did. But I sat down, I was like, I want to play D&D. This looks super fun, getting around with friends. I remember being so overwhelmed. It took me hours to make my first character for D&D. And I would imagine, you know, now maybe it's just because we're, like Braxton said, we're just comfortable with it now. Mm-hmm. That now looking at a new system, it's kind of the same experience. Maybe I'm curious if we spent like a week or two or maybe a year with this, we'd be like, oh, it's as easy as D&D is to understand. It's just tough to figure out on a first glance.
So, I mean, let's jump into...
Yeah.
I guess we can jump over example of play. We don't really need to get into that right now. But for character creation, this is the first thing for a lot of people when you're considering if you want to play. Because let's be honest, there's more players than there are DMs, I think. I will say I like the beginning of the core rulebook because it gets a lot of the main stuff. Oh, absolutely. Fast. And I will say it does repeat content.
Yes.
But at several important intervals.
You could, in theory, read the first, I don't know, 20 pages or so, and at least get a basic idea to sit down with a friend to play.
Yeah.
But of course, if you want to get more in depth, there's a lot more to
So let's broach the action economy after this as we're talking about characters, if I can jump there. But when you're creating a character, there's a lot of specific choices and less implied, though allowed by the system itself, characters that you create, as in certain races have advantages and disadvantages and stats that they're good at and stats they're bad at. These are established races.
Ancestries.
Ancestries, yes, rather than races. It's like lineages, I suppose you could say. And they do the art's amazing and blah blah blah, but each ancestry, dwarf is going to have constitution and wisdom and a free one that you can choose. It does say in the beginning, if you don't like something in the rules, change it. It mentions it once, curtails it, ends it. And it also mentions diversity as well.
Yep.
If for the sake of diversity you want to alter the rule book There's a whole paragraph on that being great. If you want to make a character speak sign language or something and that's not in the game,
cool.
do it. They mention these sorts of things. So we hear those desires.
And gender stuff.
Yeah,
too,
and gender
about
stuff
that.
as well for 5th edition to be including that. This is doing the thing that people, that party of people don't want, is by digging more into it. But I think for me, I like having that established thing for inspiration.
I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. It's interesting that they're kind of playing both sides of the fence.
They are.
And I don't think it's a bad thing.
I think it's the solution, honestly. I love it. They're like, here's what you can do. Change it if you want. Done. And then 5th edition's been jumping around a lot, so it's just kind of, you don't know. But I like the direction 5th edition's leaning towards.
I just want to say I love the ancestry options.
Well, yeah, they're not even just like...
It starts with the basic kind of dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, halfling, human stuff, but then you get into the advanced players handbook, catfolk.
Catfolk, yeah.
Kobold,
Tieflings come in.
Orc. Nope, not yet. Orc, rat folk, and Tengu.
They're in there, though.
Nope, not here.
Tieflings are in the advanced players guide.
Nope, right here. I don't see it.
What are you talking about?
It's not here, man.
Did you not see them?
It's looking
Is this the advanced players guide?
This is it,
This
man.
is not. That's not everything.
That's everything.
Where's the table of contents? Hold on. Get to the table of contents. Ancestries, planar scions. Within that is tieflings.
Okay, well that's in the
Dampier's also in it
that's
too.
in the
Changelings in it
versatile
too.
heritages. That's different.
No, that's still, you can be a tiefling. There's a whole picture.
Okay,
It's a whole picture.
So now he's sold. Now
I'm sold. So, but basically, more than just like you have dark vision, or this is how tall you are, or this is how much movement you get, and you can cast darkness. It's like a subclass. You get feats and features. That's in 5th edition, and they're kind of niche. I think there's like a spiky armor for the
but
tieflings.
you have to pick them as your feat. These are things you get at level 4 or level 9.
You level up as an elf, and you level up as a barbarian or a bard.
Yes.
And it will give you suggestions for types of things to play as when you get into classes as well. But they took essentially feats and eldritch invocations and baked them into all the classes. They're not eldritch, but there's a lot of ways to build your class that is not subclasses, which you highlighted to me.
Building it on itself.
Yes.
They give you examples. Say if you want to build a bomber alchemist, whatever, then these are the feats I would pick. This is what the starting one should be.
The starting one is like, you don't make potions, you just make bombs.
Yeah.
So it changes the thing
gives you
entirely.
examples if you just want to do the pseudo subclass kind of route.
Almost all spellcasters, my Adobe Acrat's going crazy. Almost all spellcasters, most of them, I think, outside of the bard and something else, like the witch, can prepare their spells every day.
Yeah.
It's very, very different. The classes themselves are so much more characterized, and it's not just you get an extra attack. It's like you can morph your body when you raid as a barbarian into having strong jaws, and it goes against your barbaric nature to use weapons when you're raging. So if you don't do that, there's no penalty for it, but it's like a role-playing suggestion.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And then
it
there's
gives you options. I think this is mainly in the races too, but in the classes as well, it'll say give you RP things. This is what people think of you. This is how you'll probably act. This is what your class might do.
Yeah, you might. Others probably.
This is what you'll do in downtime while exploring. Give you options, and so even in social encounters. So the barbarian he just punches things in combat. Now you have things to do in social stuff. It gives you options.
Yeah, and what I do like, which with what you just mentioned, it's the you might, others probably.
Yeah,
it's might, probably. It's not. This is what elves are like. They do this. It does go into description on the elves in particular and say they do tend to be more haughty and or they live long lives, so they pursue expertise in things. They tend to stay away from younger races that die quicker because they die quicker and they can't handle that emotional pain. They also, the entirety of their eyes aren't black. It's a whole iridescent pupil that takes up the entirety part and the entire part of the visible portion of the eye. That made me go, it's kind of freaky.
And I mean, like I talked about earlier, like the goblins are super characteristic or characterized, super cute, super fun. I mean, Braxton loves the kobolds as well.
They're so cute. And I think with monstrous races, and like orcs included too, is they don't make any assumptions of saying all
evil
X
ones.
are Y. It says there are some goblins that want to like go against what some of their more feral kinsfolk are like. They want to join society. People are occasionally against them, but they have openness to it as well. And for humans, they're still the all-rounders, but the classes themselves, I think, is where Pathfinder shines. You feel like you're playing something. It's not okay, if I'm playing a class, I can basically do the same thing but better than this person. There's probably portions of that in this, but in particular for the classes, it feels like a specialist.
Yeah.
And they go so in depth with these features that it feels, I don't know. It's so much more satisfying to me. It's like building a character. It's not just grabbing spells, which every class does. It's not just grabbing a weapon.
It gives you options.
Yeah.
It's not just at this level you get this new feature. It's at this level you get to choose which 2 new features you want.
Mm-hmm. I will say, you don't have to make a 20th level character right away. I think that's what was overwhelming me at first, is seeing how much branching paths you have and how many connecting abilities. Like if you have one feature, this happens and this dice roll goes up. So unlike D&D Beyond, where it would just automatically do it, this you would have to see that ability and it references another one. You have to go to that one or to another page, see what that base was, do the math. And this is very traditional tabletop RPG stuff, but
I do think a D&D Beyond equivalent, which sure might exist as a third-party thing of some sort out there in the world, I think that would benefit this system a lot. I think it would get people at least checking it out more often.
What was it?
A D&D Beyond equivalent. Make it easier for people to get into the game.
Do you think it's possible? I asked you that earlier.
I think it's possible. I just think it would take a lot of work.
The coders would have to be absolutely insane.
Because there are games. I've played Pathfinder games that exist that, I mean, it doesn't have everything, but it has the base stuff in there. It's like I'm playing it, walking around the world.
It's more straightforward, but if Final Fantasy 14 can, which we've been playing a shitload of, can have 80 hotkeys and abilities for you to do, though it's linear, everybody gets the same ones. There's a ton of if this then that's, and I'm not a coder.
So at the very least for D&D Beyond equivalent, I mean, just something that helps you create a character easier. It doesn't have to roll things for it, doesn't do anything, just condense it all into one place and say, you click a next button and it takes you to the next screen where you choose your class. It says you can choose these things.
Yeah.
Like what Orc Hub was, or Orc Pub was before D&D Beyond existed.
It is back.
It is, but it doesn't have everything.
So also spells refresh per day?
Yeah.
That's based off the world though, correct?
I don't know.
I think it's a setting thing. It's how the magic works.
So I guess we can bring that up now. So Pathfinder is almost like a setting book as well.
Yes.
It all takes place within Galarian, while D&D has options. It says in Forgotten Realms, the Shadowfell might look like this, and Eberron it might look like this. So they have multiple different settings in D&D, but Pathfinder is literally just Galarian. Of course, you can homebrew your own, and it says it recommends it. It gives you options, but it is all set in Galarian.
So if I can find it, we're jumping back again, but I think a key difference between D&D and Pathfinder is its consistency for things you want to do. Right. When you're skilled in something, a weapon, a task, something you do, you rarely will fail it unless it's just an incredible.
Very high. It goes past 30.
I think it's 40, 50?
It's very high.
Somewhere around there. And you're asking why it's...
And skill, I mean, your individual like charisma skills, they can be above 21. D&D, it says you cannot.
Yes. It's you can, no created character can start above an 18. And when you go to improve your abilities up until 18, you can add 2 points. Mm-hmm. When you pass 18, it's 1 point. So it takes twice as long to do it, twice as much. But a key thing here is... trainings and skills and the abilities. So in these skills, and I'm looking at I'm trying to at least the player sheet, which is a chonker a bit, but you can be trained, expert, master, or legendary and stuff. And that boils down to a +2, +4, +6, and +8. But not only that, you add your skill modifier. So like dexterity for acrobatics, your proficiency modifier, which is based off of your skill.
Your level 2, right?
Yeah, level 2. And you add your level to it as well. So it could be +5, +6 because you're level 6, +8 because you're legendary, which probably wouldn't happen at that level. But that's based off of you're building a character, and features that you take or things that your race gives you will say add 2 to your dex or bump up your dex up. Yeah. That's another critical difference. You can, they say it, do the 46 drop the lowest one. That's their official rule.
So it is no...
skill modifier.
Skill modifier, not for your roll.
Yeah.
Skill modifier is your skills ability score plus proficiency plus other bonuses plus penalties.
Yeah. So things from your background, your features, your ancestry.
Yeah.
So when you're building a character, you're choosing the stats. You get the stats that are meant for it. You can do the 46 roll thing, which is what they officially say you can do, but that's something else that I really enjoy. Though, do you like the character sheet?
I mean, I also hate base D&D character sheet too.
Yeah, this one's just absolutely crazy.
But going off what you're saying, so the difference is, I don't know if you've seen in the D&D. Oh, shit.
He's looking for it.
No, what's it called? The Dungeon Master's Guide. I just forgetting them all the. I was gonna say Game Master's Guide, but that's what it's called here. So in the Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D, it lays out. I think it probably does in Player's Handbook too. What the different skill DCs examples represent. Like 5 is trivial, 10 is, I don't remember, like average or something. 15 is, getting kind of hard. 20 is very hard, and then 25 is impossible. Is basically what it says. Here it says 10 is untrained. There's no 5. 15 is trained. 20 is expert. 30 is master, and 40 is legendary.
Yeah, 10. They do say the human average is what 10 is.
Yes.
Because humans
so even
are
if you're
average.
untrained at something, 10 is your base is.
Yes. Alignment has a mechanical purpose in this, so technically you need to choose one, but they're like, it might not be what dictates your character itself. They got rid of inspiration as the DM could give it to you. You do something incredibly great, and they turned it into hero points, which you can stockpile them. They can do things like save your life.
I don't like hero points.
I figured you wouldn't.
Because I think it takes out the sting of dying. Though dying in this game is a lot easier.
Yes, just be more stingy with how you give the hero points.
It says you get them like once at the beginning of each session.
Yeah, that's
so at least it's one life back. But like I said, we haven't talked about combat yet, but combat's a lot deadlier here.
No,
especially because when you take a rest, you don't get all your health back.
Yes. So let's talk about the action economy.
Sure. Yeah.
So do you have the page open right now?
I don't.
I'm looking for it. But essentially, rather than having an action, a bonus action.
At the very beginning, if that's what you're talking about.
Okay, I found it. So rather than having an action, bonus action, reaction for the entire round that's going on, and an interact, so you can like pick something up or swap a weapon. You have 3 actions. Consider these action points. Think about Divinity Original Sin 2. Stabbing with your melee weapon doing nothing special is 1 action point. But maybe casting a spell takes 2.
Or 3.
Or 3, depending on how crazy it is. Now, if you are doing a 2-action activity and it costs concentration or something, you can't do another thing right now because you still have to focus on that. So that's how that works. You can...
So the way it works, if I understand it, and I couldn't, maybe this is our first time looking at it.
Yeah.
So it's called sustaining.
Yeah.
If you cast a sustaining ability, a spell, and the next turn you just have to say you're sustaining it. So you have to use at least a action point to continue sustaining it. You can still do something with the other 2, but I think with the 1 you still have to sustain.
Yeah, keep using it.
Obviously you can't do another sustaining spell.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Probably not. And there's 3 per turn that you get that refresh. And
it's a lot of things you can do with those actions.
There's a lot, and it removes the siloing of things that dictate something is a bonus action and a action, and that one big action you can cast a wish spell. Wow, that's fucking insane. Or I can stab a guy or like tickle him.
So now you can do that and stab.
Now it's
you can move. You can even, what's it called, like sliding
or stride.
Stride. You can stride. Use your movement speed.
Yeah.
Use an action. Just start walking. That's cool.
My big point here though is that doing a wish spell might be 3 action activity points, which is like, okay, that makes sense. Or stabbing guy is 1. There's a value set to it rather than like a save or suck spell or something like that, which there are, I think, none in this. Most things.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the way the DCs work, and it lays it out for you, is if you, and it really lies
the only way something
on
doesn't happen
crits.
is like critting.
Crits and massive failures, which is 1s and natural 20s, are big in this, at least in the base mechanics. That if you roll a nat 20, nothing happens, you're fine. If you save, you take half. If you fail, you take the full. And if you do a natural 1, I believe you take double. And I think something else happens to you too, but I don't really remember.
Yeah. There's no case
sucks.
where nothing happens at all. There's always something that you get for expending. There's no risk here, which some of you might not like, but I think that solves a big D&D issue. Yeah. You also have your typical reaction and 1 free action. And there are some things that you can just do. I believe there are some things that do not take any of these uses
free
at all.
Actions kind of stuff.
Yeah, free action kind of stuff. And they're signified by different rhombi or symbol rhombuses. I don't know. It's weird. Where do we go next?
I was trying to see if I could find that quick thing about the spells, but
it's kind of far in.
I'm in the spell area, but I can't find it.
It's before your. Oh god.
Oh well.
Yeah, it's the spell glossary.
Yeah, spell glossary is pretty crazy.
It is kind of crazy. They say all spells pretty much take 2 action points.
Yes.
Are you talking about the ones where you have to learn them?
No, I was looking for the DC stuff. I don't remember where that was at.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
Can we go to spells and weapons? Because I think they're one and the same this time.
Yeah, we can do that.
So weapons, let's talk about the glaive and halberd issue. Okay. So glaives and halberds in 5th edition D&D both do slashing damage and I believe have the same reach and the same damage dice. If not, let's pretend they do, or think about a weapon that basically is no different from another one. That they have 2 different names, but everything in their stat block is exactly the same.
Okay.
For weapons in Pathfinder, they add a ton of new, what do they call them? Features? I'm not sure. Attributes to these weapons,
yes. Yeah,
like a falchion or a glaive. If you do consecutive attacks with them, they double their damage die at some point. Like the second hit adds 1 damage die. Go ahead.
We didn't talk about this with the combat.
I know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you attack twice with one of your actions.
Multi-attack penalty.
Yeah, it's -5 and -10, I think. Or no,
-5 first one, and then -10 the second time. Nope, -5.
Okay.
It's
a
big.
lot of minus.
It's big.
But you also do a lot.
Yeah.
Your skills are a lot higher.
We're on the same page here. So, but that's really cool, and they know it risks it. So when you hit a second time with your glaive, you're going to 2d8, and then the other time it's to like 3 or 48. Some other weapons like reach is a typical thing you've got. You can trip people. Like these weapons have actual attributes based off of how they look. There's another polearm. I love polearms. I'm sorry. That has just the halberd. You could do slashing or piercing damage on it because it's versatile. There's a ton of things. Each weapon is unique, and you can consider them like a spell in and of itself. Spells are way more difficult to come by. You have to know somebody who can teach you it for a full minute or longer, depending on the spell level. It scales up. Or
you also have to roll DCs for those.
You can fail and not learn it.
Yeah. If you roll that 20, it's like it exists there forever or something, it says.
Yeah. It's crazy. Some classes, if you learn a spell at 3rd level for one of your 3rd level slots and you level it up, you either have to heighten spell it, which some classes can do, or you just can't cast that at 4th level at all because you learned it at 3rd level. So you'd have to learn it again at 5th level. Those are for, like, I think the bard can do not quicken spells, but impromptu spells. What are they called?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it's interesting. So spellcasters are very defined. Spells are hard to come by. It's a full thing. Like when you level up in D&D, there's the rule that we have where you have to do a long rest to internalize and realize the spell. But in this, it's your downtime. You might do this.
Yes. Yeah, magic is, I want to say it might be because of how they're making the setting, but it's definitely much more...
High magic and Dungeons and Dragons?
Maybe. But it's more impactful here than I'd say in D&D. A lot of spells do some crazy cool stuff. I don't even know. I haven't counted them, but I wonder if there's more spells in one or the other. But that's basic combat stuff. Again, we're probably getting things wrong. It's okay. I mean, keep in mind, this is our first time looking at it. If we get stuff wrong, please comment below, send us an email, hop on our Discord, whatever.
Yeah.
Either way, we think it's really cool stuff. And should we talk about Game Master stuff?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, I
didn't learn any of this stuff because we're keeping the player Game Master thing. So that's why I've been talking most of the time.
So I looked into the Game Mastery Guide, and my biggest complaint, it's almost like a step forward and a step back in a way. They add some cool things. It's much more mechanics heavy, which, hell, maybe Pathfinder 2e is more mechanics heavy than 1e was. It's a possibility for that. But the Game Master Guide for Pathfinder 1st edition had a lot of tables. If you guys remember my D&D binder, the episode we did on that
forever ago.
Yeah, I flipped through it and showed it and stuff. Which actually that was before video, so that'd be nice if we did it again now. Maybe so I could actually show you it.
Yeah.
A lot of what's in there is actually straight out of the Game Mastery Guide for the 1st edition book. There's a lot of tables in there, a lot of really cool stuff. There are no tables in 2e's book.
None.
I mean, okay, maybe like 1 or 2 small ones.
Some to describe DC and stuff.
Yeah, but no tables is in like a D100 list of dungeon dressings or salad dressings or, just stuff like the NPC accents and stuff. There's nothing like that in this book. And that makes me sad as someone who's not running the game.
Yes.
If I was running the game, granted, I could probably take those anyway, but there's a lot more in here I almost thought there weren't going to be any things on like how to make a world, like basic stuff like that. But there's a little bit in here, how to make settlements, how to make nations, that type of stuff, pantheons, religions.
Is this harder to run, would you say, than 5th edition?
Yeah, 100% harder to run.
There you go.
But maybe the skill ceiling we've already said is higher.
Well,
so
you've kind of got a different point of view on it, in particular about things that are presented like modules and stuff.
Yeah. So
sorry,
even just looking at the way things are laid out, there's a lot more information here than say a game mat or a Dungeon Master's Guide. There's really cool artwork, but I'd say the Dungeon Master's Guide had a lot more artwork covered, big areas and making it harder to read stuff. Which is, I'd say, good and a bad thing, because it means there's a lot of information in here, but it's all just presented in textbook format where it's kind of overwhelming to look at. Maybe it's just our small brains of being used to looking at textbooks as growing up in college and stuff, and it just gives us bad memories. But
I think that's a part of the reason why D&D is so popular right now, because a lot of our generation grew up reading, if Sally had 5 watermelon spell slots, she can do this and that, and how many spell slots does she have left?
With cool flashy pictures
everywhere. And shit like that. A sick-ass t-shirt holding some watermelons or really crazy cursed things. I don't know. The big thing for me that I wanted to learn from you about is how comfortable you feel like reading and going through all of this.
I think I feel comfortable looking through it because it's the way Paizo lays out their books, not like what's the word?
Format,
not just format, but the way it's written. It's very flowery with really cool words, and it makes it interesting to read. It's not just this does that, this pantheon's that. It's not like reading a boring history book. It's like fascinating information.
It feels purposeful. There's a lot of stuff in the latest D&D releases that they say a bunch of times in a row, and it feels unplanned, like they had no draft. I feel like they've made 48 billion drafts of this until they got it just right.
Yes.
What's it like running the game, though?
Running the game is tough, I would say, at least from someone who hasn't run it. But I thought D&D was super hard.
Well, there's like actual sections of it in particular.
Like running the game?
Yeah.
I mean, the Dungeon Master's Guide, it basically says how to transfer, how to decide what skills to use, which is, I would say, hard because there's a lot of skills. There's specific skills for, I know the lore of this city specifically, so I have a skill that's lore for that city. While D&D is just roll a history check.
Yeah.
The modules I like a lot more. I've gassed them up for years on this podcast about how much I love the first edition Pathfinder books. Granted, I've never ran them, but I've used encounter ideas and tossed them into my game. And the reason why I like them so much is because its content is so much more interesting than, say, Curse of Strahd's kind of cool, right? Whatever, fine. But some of the other ones, I just don't. It doesn't tickle me in a way that like these Pathfinder, because so Strahd is maybe, let's say, 300-ish pages, maybe longer. I could check, but I'm not going to. Maybe 300-ish pages, 400 max, I would say. Some of that's just setting. I'd say maybe 3/4 of that story. Sure, whatever. These are adventure paths, is what they call them. Granted, they have just straight adventure modules, but adventure paths are the ones I really like. And it's usually 5 to 6 books, all 100 pages. 80 pages of that is usually just a straight story. 20 pages of that is the stat blocks and whatnot, and a little background history stuff. And so that's a lot of story stuff. It takes you all the way to level 20. Every one of them that I've looked at for first edition did that as well. Straight to level 20. And you don't have to. Each adventure path it's standalone kind of thing. And it does lead into the next if you want to. And the story is so fascinating, so interesting. I mean, it is. It's literally just a full campaign. It's not just a small condensed story.
This is all in the first edition of it. Like, second edition, but I mean, like, everything is in this book. It's not just, here's your player's handbook. Now go buy the adventure modules. Like, it's in there.
It's not.
It's not?
No.
They have, like, the world and stuff in there.
Well, they have the world and stuff. Yeah. I mean, like, the adventures are not in there.
All right, well, I'm stupid. I didn't read it, so. Yeah.
It's not your fault. But the adventure paths, like, for example, the one I looked at was the first one that was released, Age of Ashes, Hell Knight Hill. And I looked at all 6 of them, and I love how they do it. For example, if you play Curse of Strahd, there's a vampire encounter. It just says that you walk into a room.
Surprise.
There's 3 vampire thralls, whatever the hell they're called. and that's the encounter. It says there's 3 of them in there. The players fight them. Whatever, you roll initiative. Here, the very first encounter, and it's like this for nearly every single encounter in the game, which is probably why it's 600 pages worth of content, is it'll describe what's there. It's just a simple fire method, and there's a fire going around the room. There's people trapped in the room, and it describes exactly how everything happens. The Mythic's doing this. The NPCs are doing these actions. They're trying to rescue these people. If the players call out for help, a guard from outside that they saw earlier will come in. Otherwise, the guard's going to go off and do something else, trying to find who started the fire. I mean, there's so many different mechanics going through, and I was telling Braxton beforehand, it's taking the onus off of me. Mm-hmm. It's making me not have to do as many thoughts. While combat is already mechanically tough in this game, I would say.
How long would it take you to feel comfortable running this? How many days would you spend on it?
First, like this one adventure, I could probably do it in a month, maybe less.
It's a lot of time.
Well, to make sure I'm confident with all the lore and background stuff.
I mean, if you follow the Lazy Dungeon Master's guide, stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that I do, I prep in a week or even a day.
Yeah. I mean, you could, in theory, if you're a more improv-heavy DM
Could you just sit that in front of you and run it?
I'd say no, just on the fact that there's background lore and stuff. But if you know that stuff, whatever, because you're a big Galarian fanatic, because it's possibly, because it's been the same setting since first edition, so you might love it. You might be able to do it. Because, I mean, for example, there is like 2 full pages on this one encounter. You can just easily skim through and say, okay, the spectators are doing this. These guys are helping. Okay, I got it. Let's go. And you can do it in between rounds, maybe. And maybe I could do it in less than a week, or less than a month, because, you know, combat can take a while, especially in Pathfinder. I imagine it takes longer than D&D. But I would say it's more fascinating, and this gives me more options to pick from.
Absolutely.
The method's not just doing this. The fire's not just, you know, maybe every round it's collapsing on somebody. It's a dynamic battlefield, and it gives me more things to think about while I'm running the game in a good way, not just extra numbers.
Well, it's a lot of what I think I have picked up from what you've done, and I think that's also probably from the first edition. You do action-oriented monsters, which is something from Matt Colville, and I think that's also in probably first edition of Pathfinder. You also make more things happen on initiative. It's not just fighting a monster. There's environmental effects or that lava from the method, etc. Yeah. I feel like a lot of stuff from 5th edition is just, here's this creature with some stats, and possibly the reason that a lot of the early level monsters in the monster manual for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition are just bite, slam, and flavor. Boring. And are the monsters like that in this?
I mean, the method itself, I guess let's pull that up just for funsies. Let's pull up what the method does. And while I'm doing that, for example, Braxton, so the very first thing, I'm just going to explain this because Braxton can actually attest to it, because he doesn't know that he played the very beginning of one of these adventure paths. For the beginning of this campaign, you remember the goblin attacking a festival? That's straight out of Rise of the Rune Lords or something from 2nd edition or 1st edition Pathfinder. And that was kind of cool. I mean, the goblins are jumping around, singing songs. They're lighting stuff on fire.
They were killing people.
Things. Yeah, they're killing people. But they're lighting stuff on fire. They're throwing things in the middle of combat. And what's fascinating to me is you know as well how easy it is for first level characters to die.
Yes.
Right? I don't know, it's been a long time, so you might not remember this. But it describes in that encounter book, and obviously I brought it into D&D, is that the goblins sometimes might not even attack the players. They're having a fun time just jumping around, tossing stuff, lighting stuff on fire, watching it, lighting their buddy on fire because they think it's funny, just to add to the chaos of this game and to make it less deadly for a first level group to fight a whole troop of goblins.
You know, it's been like 2 years since that, 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
You just now have told me that it's a Pathfinder module. He does this shit all the time, I swear. Okay,
so looking at the fire method, it's 100% a very, low-level creature. It's got 16 HP. It does heal if it's touching fire, so that's kind of cool. 20 feet or 25 feet of flying. Its attack is a +9 to hit, 1d6 piercing, 1d4 fire. That's actually that's a lot of damage. It can cast 2 spells, Daze and Light, and it also has a breath weapon, which does 2d4 and 1d4 persistent damage to each creature.
Now, versus like a goblin from 5th edition that has maybe a ranged attack and a weapon and some languages and stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah, the way D&D works is definitely more on you could give a goblin any weapon and it does the same.
Yeah,
thing.
honestly, if we were doing Pathfinder for the Dungeon Chronicles, our actual play podcast, go check it out. I wouldn't need to be homebrewing so many things right now and giving abilities to monsters. Now, that's not necessarily bad. 5th edition just flat out says, yeah, you can do that. But I love getting these things. Nice.
Thank you, bring out there. I'm trying to, you brought up Goblin. I'm trying to find it because I know they have specific ability. Yeah, here it is.
There it is.
So the Goblin, it has a reaction to just if it ends its move adjacent to the warrior and it can step away.
It's a -1 threat level, which is the lowest.
Yeah, poor little guy.
Which goes up to 10 or 20?
6 HP.
30. It goes up to 30. It goes from -1 to 30 for creature threats.
So the base Goblin, -1, we'll just say CR because it's easier for D&D people. Very similar to the Goblin from the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Monster Manual, whatever. Then you start getting some of the other ones, and I can't. Yeah, the War Chant. So it has a lot of different goblins. While I'm pretty sure the Monster Manual just has the one goblin.
So there's a few later on, but yeah, the Monster Manual I don't think has any more.
Yeah. You can add in a couple of these different ones, these goblins, and the War Chanter is super cool because it's singing a song. And the song is using a performance check against a will DC, kind of like a wisdom check of the players around it. And this can restrict things. It can, the song's getting stuck in their head. It can empower its friends with this song. It gives these goblins a lot of character, much more than the base monster manual for D&D does. I think that's where Pathfinder really shines.
It shines in a lot of places for me. My question for you right now, you were looking at monsters when you were trying to find a thing and you wouldn't tell me what it was. You said you were going to save it for the podcast. You were like, this is
I already said it.
What was it?
Oh, no, I was looking at, I was comparing the Game Master's Guide to the first edition to the second edition. And that's when I discovered that it doesn't have any tables, the big tables I really like. I was making sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was something spicy for me.
That's kind of spicy. It's my complaint. I have a problem with it.
We had another problem too, is formatting for monsters in particular.
Yeah, I think it's a little, I don't know. So we were talking about this before the podcast. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's not formatted poorly per se. It's just, there's a lot of text and it can get, like the reason I think it works so well for D&D, there's a box around it. It makes it easy to say, all right, this is the stat block. Each one has a enter underneath it. So it's easy to get all together. The spells have first level spells here, usually second level spells here, third level spells underneath that. While here it's just a massive text, sometimes going from page to page. It can be a little mind numbing.
For me, they have additional graphics for actions or what they can do. So if you're thinking, so I'm kind of on the opposite end. For me, my monkey brain, this works better than Dungeons and Dragons.
Monkey brain.
And it's not a better or worse because I think both are professional level of game design. You might not think so for 5th edition. You might think it's shitty.
I do really like the little emblem that says this is an action. It makes it easy.
Yeah, so I can see like, okay, I want to use an action for my creature right now. Where can I go? I can look for that symbol and find it. Bam. I can see the reaction symbol. Bam. And it's got some color coding things. The art is really great looking. For some reason, it works well. I know a lot of text designers and people who are making things right now are keeping the width of a paragraph more squished. They're not letting it be as wide because we look at our phones all day and we look at Twitter feeds. So we're used to being able to look and move our eyes down quicker than a traditional book would. But I'm kind of the opposite because in Dungeons and Dragons, they very much follow the former thing I explained. But in Pathfinder, if they can, use about 3/4 of the width of a page before they start going and justifying it again to the other side or pressing enter, which is really interesting to me. I don't know. I feel like if I had this formatting, I wouldn't be as reliant on D&D Beyond to run my encounters. But then again, I think it would be a big task for me to transition to using a book. I'd probably be taking pictures of the stats, throwing them in places, which is, what people were doing just probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe even sooner than that. What are you looking at?
I was just thinking that I don't remember seeing any like legendary resistances, legendary actions, that type of stuff. And I don't think this system really needs something like that.
I don't think so. I think the feats, some of them kind of function like that.
I think it makes it feel, because I mean, as someone that's been on the receiving end of legendary actions and legendary resistances, it just doesn't feel good.
No.
Especially when the DM's like, and a legendary action this.
Counterspell. Did you read it?
Yes.
Did you?
I looked at it, yeah.
Okay, so the way Counterspell works in this is you have to know the spell that's being cast. So
that's right. There's a whole section on identifying the spell.
Yeah, you have to be able to identify it, know it, or somebody else in your has to know it, or you have to know something on it. Otherwise, you cannot counter it. So it's like you have to know how to defuse a trap. You need to know what wire to clip. That's how you balance counterspell.
You have to know it.
That's so like it's probably not the best solution, but I was like, oh wow, I love that. What are you laughing at?
No, just this creature. I looked at the highest level creature in the path because I was seeing if they had legendary actions or resistance. Doesn't. I'm just looking at the DC. It's 49 for this thing.
But people are gonna be hitting like near or above that.
I mean,
because at 20th level, you're already just flat out getting a 20 bonus to your proficient weapons, or a +8 as well. So that's 28.
Where's it? Its AC is 54.
Okay, well, I mean,
it's just so scary to look at these numbers from a D&D.
Well, let's think about it, because this is something that I think people would be interested in. Say I'm a fighter and I am legendary with.
This is one of the highest creatures in Pathfinder.
Yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm legendary, proficient, or trained in a great sword. So right there, that's a +8 plus my level, which is 20, so 28. Plus any other bonuses. Let's just jump it up to 30. So what's the AC?
56.
So if I roll a 10, that's 40. So I need to roll. Can I even hit that? Fuck, am I just ruining myself right now? If I roll a if I roll a 19 from going from 30, that is, oh fuck.
Dude,
shit.
This thing is a monster.
Maybe not. I just did some math. You guys should be proud of me.
This is like the Tarrasque, but cooler.
Well, Tarrasque isn't cool, so everything's cool.
Well, because it also is carrying a item 25 black axe.
Items are so much cooler in this game.
This thing is terrifying. It's called the Tree Razor. It's the self-styled Lord of the Blasted Tarn. It's a demon. Man, this thing is it rules the abyss itself, it says.
I'm just saying, if I could and I had the time to prepare it, I would immediately swap the Dungeon Chronicles to Pathfinder.
Hey, maybe after the campaign we can do a couple one-shots in it, try to do a mini campaign, see how we feel it.
I think so. Like make some characters and make a short story for it. I'd be excited about it. Yeah. Oh, I just had a thought.
God damn, this thing is terrifying.
Yeah. When you think of the trash, you're like, oh, I just can't hit it or cast spells on it. Well, that's fun.
I mean, just looking at the screen, there's a damage type called evil. You're taking evil damage. That's not good. You don't want everyone to take evil damage.
What if I am evil? Do
You're
I
also
heal?
taking chaotic damage. I know.
Wait, is that where? Yeah, does chaotic damage do more damage to good things?
That's a good question. I mean, it does say here. It does say here. Unless it's, I think it's about health maybe, because here it says it regenerates 50 health. I would imagine that's every turn. It's deactivated by good. So if it's hit by good damage, then it probably doesn't regenerate that turn.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You probably need like a legendary weapon that does good damage.
Or maybe certain spells.
Talking sword, Excalibur, bolts. Or something from like Soul Eater. I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Is there anything else that I mean, it's a massive game. There's always something else to talk about within it.
100%. I don't know. I think kind of as we said, the adventures are really cool. I recommend. I mean, I think the biggest problem with Pathfinder. I mean, not biggest problem. One of the biggest problems coming into Pathfinder, especially second edition, is people complain now about D&D about how many books you have to get. This game came out 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. There are so many books I've released for. Granted, some of them you definitely don't need. They're setting books. There are a lot of adventure books. If you want to run one of these adventures, you got to get 6 books.
What I want to say is that I'm satisfied enough, and this could just be because it's all fresh, so it's got that, nice coat of paint on it to keep me interested. But I'm the 5th edition base races and classes are so boring to me compared to the new stuff that comes out. Yeah. And if the design trend is as consistent as it is from the guide, the whatever the official name is, and for the Pathfinder one, the core rule book for that one, as it is in the advanced player's guide. I don't know how far apart those are.
Like a year and a half, something like that.
That's a decent amount of time. They could have changed a lot, but it's very consistent. I don't think, oh shit, I really wish I had this. And due to how they format books when they create something, it's not like, okay, I've got to sift through an entirely new and unfamiliar table of contents to find this new warlock subclass and figure it out. It's very consistent between books. Granted, I haven't read a ton of things for this, but I mean,
they already got two more books already on pre-order that are coming out. What are they this year? Guns and Gears and Secrets of Magic.
I think it's fine. To be honest, I think
I like it. I like that they're doing this much. I think just the problem is if you coming into it now, it's maybe money isn't problem for you don't have enough cash and D&D is maybe right here, maybe you've been playing it for a while, or you just get a quick D&D Beyond subscription, it's easier to get into. I mean, of course,
it is so much easier to get into.
But
easier to DM. You can run it in one night. So
there are PDFs. The PDFs are only $15. That's actually a great price. That's a great price.
Control F. Man, my throat.
There are subscription services for this as well. Just like I saw there's an adventure subscription service where you get like the first 3 of an adventure path for 1 month. You pay, I don't know, X amount of dollars. Then next month you get the other 3.
That's cool.
It's very cool.
So I would love to hear, like, if somebody's watching this video, no matter how far into the future it is, like leave a message or a comment somewhere and let me know if you started with Pathfinder and how you perceive other tabletop RPGs.
I would imagine if you started with 3rd edition, then you probably moved over to Pathfinder because 4th edition was a big change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new people starting out right now, and maybe somebody said, 5th edition looks too one way. I don't want to throw an insult at it because it's still a good game. We don't dislike it. I guess so. But I want to know everybody's opinions. Like, if you have played both, what do you feel is the strength of one over the other? Would you run? What kind of games would you run? Would you run a year-long campaign in this, or would you just stick to one-shots or short bursts of games? Or would you do that in Dungeons and Dragons? Which leans itself better?
Yeah, it depends too on the format you're playing. I mean, if you're doing a live play production, I mean, there's a reason why Critical Role switched from Pathfinder to D&D. It's easier to watch. So
if we were to do this in Dungeon Chronicles, we already spend maybe like 15 to 30 seconds doing a single roll for a check. Just because people have to find their dice and roll it, and the fact that this would be only paper, we would need to spend literal time training and practicing.
Yeah.
So that if you guys level up, I would say you need to do this now and memorize your abilities right away. Know it so that if I say I need you to do this roll for your one ability, you just go, okay, bam, done.
I'd be printing down a lot of paper.
I think it could be, I think it could be done.
100%. I think it's just the reason why it's harder to watch as a spectator is it's like watching Magic, not knowing what you're looking at. It's like there's things happening, cards are moving around the screen on this guy the streamer I'm watching. I don't know what it is I'm seeing.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of numbers.
Just role playing.
Yeah.
Oh, they rolled a number and it was high. They did the thing.
It's easier to figure out. It's easier to pick up.
Yeah. Versus Pathfinder, it's like, okay, I'm going to make my first strike and I've got like plus 12 to hit it right now. I'm going to do it again and have minus 5 to hit it again. So I'm going to roll another dice that does this damage. My weapon has durability, and they'd use a reaction to hit my weapon and it breaks it, and now I can't use it. I raise my shield and they hit that. Shield's break in like 2 seconds in this game. They do add a flat bonus to your AC, but you have to raise it.
Yeah.
Weapons have durability in this game. Huh? Your weapons have health.
Everyone loved it in Breath of the Wild.
I don't.
No one did.
No one did. No one did. People like in Fallout, though. One thing that Pathfinder changed my mind on, and this is going to be my final thing.
Okay, so you're the guy with the table that says, change my mind, and your mind was changed.
My mind was changed. Hidden dice rolls that the DM does for the players.
Yeah, you've talked about that before, and
I thought I hated it.
One of our episodes.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember why. I still have like the understanding or feeling of like, okay, it just feels weird.
You didn't like it because you felt like it was taking the control out of your actions. You're like, if I roll bad, I roll bad. But if the DM rolls bad for me, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. I think that's because of D&D and how it is. There's so little rolling. Well, it depends on your game. So intrinsically, that statement is incorrect. For what I do, there's not a ton of rolling in our games all of the time. So I want to be able to do it. But in Pathfinder, and just in general moving forward, if there's a puzzle in a dungeon, and you have me do my check or my whatever seeing thing it is in this game, and I look around and you give me my description, I'm expecting there to be something in this. And if I roll and I get a 2 and you say, you don't see anything else, I'm like, oh,
shit.
I know there's something there. It's like in Disco Elysium. You try to open a door because you can click on it. You see it highlights and you fail. And it's just fucking there. I paid $60 for this game and I can't open it versus my friend wrote something. And in Pathfinder, they specifically say there's certain roles, and D&D might say this as well, but a perception check. You roll it behind the screen. I might hear a dice roll. That's probably going to give it away, but I'm much more okay with saying and role playing, I just don't know. My character doesn't see it. That's it. There's so many more ways to hide traps and secrets.
Yeah, we've talked about doing that in our game, but I think it's just so ingrained in us that I tried it for like 2 games and it just didn't really work out.
If you want to change stealth checks right now, do it.
We talked about that too, I believe, as well.
I'm so okay with it. If you want to change perception checks to where we don't even ask if we can do it,
I just do it for you.
just do it for me.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. So even before you say your description or start it, and this is tangential, but I think it's an important discussion for Dungeons and Dragons in general. But you guys enter this room, dice roll. Braxton, you see this, and that. Nikki, one of our other players, you notice there's like a shine in the corner of the room, and then you over here, you're kind of stuck thinking about this one thing. And I don't have any other leading information where Ryan like started saying, actually, roll a perception check for me.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Yeah, I do that all the fucking time. But, you know, how much of the game do you want to play? How much of the dice do you want to roll?
Right.
Pathfinder, there's an ass load of dice.
There's an ass load.
There's an ass load. They even have some picture of dice. They're just for you to learn if you're starting from scratch. Right, that's my last statement. Long-winded,
and
but
the cool thing, speaking of pictures of dice, they have the pictures of how the spells look and the area of effect stuff, the lines. I thought the line was interesting that it goes like forward 5 and
every
down 5.
Odd diagonal is 5 and every even is 10 feet.
Yes. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
So that's Pathfinder. I mean, I'd say check it out if you're interested.
Give it a read. Have like a weekend or two to just jump in and pour through the parts that you want to look at.
I mean, it's one of those things where, let's say you're getting into the tabletop sphere. You're like, I want to play a fantasy RPG with my friends. You kind of got these two options. Granted, there are more out there. Don't yell at me. There are more, but these are like the two big ones, the two elephants in the room.
Yeah.
Like, why would I pick a different one when I got D&D and Pathfinder in front of me?
That's why a lot of people are saying about D&D right now, why would I pick anything other than D&D when it's got D&D Beyond and all this shit? But this convinced me as an avid D&D Beyond user that I would still do this even without that luxury. I would get rid of it to play this at least once or twice just to see. It seems exciting, fun. But you know what else is?
Well, the creators are also, sorry, the guys that work on Pathfinder are also big Lovecraftian
You can tell.
creature fans. And I'm excited to see when they make an adventure path that's like that. Strange Aeons for the first edition. So good.
Realization. Warlock sucks so bad they got rid of it.
This is fair.
To be fair, it's in other classes, but it's not,
How many
not the best
classes are in D&D? It's
Fighter,
more in
Ranger,
right?
Druid, Rogue, Sorcerer, Wizard, Warlock,
Artificer,
Monk, what you are, and Cleric.
Did you say that?
I don't know. It's like 10 or 11.
It's 10 or 11. There's a lot in this one.
Yeah.
There's
It's like at least near 15, 17.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 or 16. I can't
Yeah.
count.
Yeah, and then there's some additional ones. They add the Alchemist, the Champion's just the Paladin, the Witch is just the Warlock, but different. Basically, they added 2 in the base one, and then there's some more Swashbucklers there, which is really cool. Oracle. I think you would like Investigator.
Yeah, Investigator's very cool.
Very, very cool.
But it's so cool to me how much they keep adding to this game.
Yeah.
And I wish WotC, I mean, it's not like they're adding small things either. They're big. There are already 3 monster manuals for Pathfinder.
I think WotC would see the books that they're releasing and they would say, this is the reason why we don't want to release so many things is because it fragmentalizes. That's not a word. Don't learn that one. It fragments the player base. But I would disagree and say that they're doing it how WotC wants to. I mean,
it's called advanced players. If you think you're an advanced player, don't get the book.
Don't use it. And I think everything is up to par and consistent enough to say that you know what you're missing out on. I don't need another because it's not adding in something absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if it's going to be this upcoming books like Strixhaven and the other ones. We're like, I don't fucking know what they're going to put in it. This, we know how they probably format it. We know what they do and we know what it would look like. And they're probably going to add something to every class.
It's kind of weird to think about. I'm not excited for the Strixhaven or the
I haven't been excited at all.
But I'm oddly excited for the next adventure path release for a game I don't even play.
Yeah. So think about that a little bit. Also think about social media and how you might contact us on the internet because we do posts at Dungeon Crawl Pod. I did it a little late last week, but I always do a little preview of both episodes. No spoilers, at least not yet, until I start wanting to do it for both this podcast, the Dungeon Crawl, and the Dungeon Chronicles, our actual play podcast, which we do at twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawl Network, usually on Mondays around 6 p.m.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Every other Monday.
Every other Monday.
If you're listening to this, you just missed it.
You just missed it. It came out.
You'll see it next week.
It came out from this one. This one came out. It came out last night. We did it last night. I got more prep to do tonight, actually, so we'll see how that goes. If you want to email us, the Dungeon Crawl Pod at gmail.com. Again, that's the Dungeon Crawl Pod at gmail.com.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Go message it. I sometimes jump in. I jumped in last night. Sometimes jump in to see if they added something, because if I get a little message, my heart warms up. Somebody gave us a comment on our Ill Rigger episode. That one has a lot of traction on it because people are. It's a controversial topic. I love talking to people about D&D and tabletop RPGs. So do it.
That's why we do this podcast.
Yes, it is. Your turn.
Yeah. So I was looking through the Pathfinder book last thing before we'll end. Sorry. I was looking through
I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
Go on.
I was looking through the Game Master book and I completely forgot.
I swear.
No. He doesn't swear. I completely forgot that in the tool section. So I was wrong before.
I swear to God.
What, man? I was wrong before. There is one table in here.
You fucking piece of shit.
No, I forgot this table's in here.
I swear.
It's in the tool section, chapter 2. And it actually kind of freaked me out at first because Paizo obviously doesn't know about us, but I decided to roll on the table. The table was what to name your dungeons. Not dungeons. Your taverns in a dungeon. It's a very specific thing. Taverns in a dungeon. And I rolled on it, and it's one of those tables where you roll multiple times. You combine the words together.
Yeah.
And I got the dungeon crawl. And you're not going to believe. I decided to roll one more time, right? I rolled one more time, and I got a podcast. So I was like, that's us. Why is podcast even in this table?
Yeah.
And then I rolled just for the hell of it. I said, I want my tavern to be a really long name. Rolled again, and it said, rate us 5 stars on iTunes. And that was a mouthful.
The sad thing is I forced myself to say that, and I still kind of believe this could have been something that you were actually going to say about it.
Right. But so the dungeon, the tavern that I should have named it was the Dungeon Crawl Podcast. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
I wanted to believe him.
And that's a long thing. So I did. I was like, first of all, I should do that, and so I stopped what I was doing and went to Apple Podcasts, rated us 5 stars, and then I came back and finished my dungeon.
Yeah.
And that's in there. So you might find it in our next home game.
You might find it also on YouTube, the Dungeon Crawl Podcast. Search that. If you're only listening to audio right now, we try not to make it to where you miss out too much video-wise, but we do have a pretty 4K camera right now.
Yeah.
It takes ages to process. Hi.
Hey,
seeing you there. I'm waving right now, audio people.
And we have a live play. We did mention Dungeon Chronicles.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube as well. So if you're here, you might as well check it out.
Good?
I don't know. Yeah, we don't know what we're doing next week. I don't think yet.
No, but we're cooking things.
Yeah, it's gonna be something cool. We're close to the 100th episode,
second year.
So yeah, 100th episode and second year. It's a big milestone. So if you're out there listening to this podcast and you like it, please send us a message, an email, hop in our Discord to ask us a question, and we're gonna take all those questions. We might, if we don't get any questions, might interview ourselves, but we'd love to take questions from you guys and talk about. It doesn't have to be personal questions. It could be personal questions, but just stuff about D&D, stuff about your games. Hell, maybe not even questions. Tell us what your game is like, what you enjoyed D&D for. We'll chat about it.
Check out maybe our Kickstarter episode, one where we reviewed stuff for D&D on 2019 and tell us how much we've changed. I don't know. Also, I just want more views on that one because almost all of our episodes have 100 downloads on them. That's really cool. I don't know why I said that, but hey, it's really cool. I don't know. Awesome. He's been Ryan.
He's Braxton. Thanks for listening.
This is where the dungeon crawl. Thanks for calling with us.
This is the part where you say something. That was really funny.
My arm did that thing where my nerves popped and it really hurt. So commit to the bit.
See you later.